Good afternoon and welcome to our midday press briefing. Today is Wednesday, 23rd of April. We do not have announcements for you today, so we can go straight into your questions. Like always, please say your name and the media outlet for which you work. Go ahead.
Thanks. Kim McCrail from the Wall Street Journal. I have a question about the DMA, Digital Market Act announcements that just came out. The Commission decided to issue those today without doing a press conference specifically to discuss them. I know we get an opportunity to, we had a technical briefing and we get an opportunity to speak with you, but why did you decide not to hold a press conference? And does either the timing or the decision not to hold a press conference have anything to do with the political situation with tariffs and trade discussions with the US?
Thanks, Thomas, joining me. Let me be completely clear. This is about enforcement. It's not about trade negotiations. These are very distinct matters, completely separate. We have a regulation. We are applying the regulation. We apply it, of course, in the same way to all companies. Here we had a decision in the making that you have been asking us about for a while. We have concluded the technical work on these decisions. We have said so, I think, in the past couple of weeks. And then we have been drafting the decision. Of course, there are legal aspects to be taken into account when drafting a decision because it has to be sound from a legal perspective. When the decision was ready, we adopted it. And this is where we stand today. Executive Vice President Ribeira is in Mexico, as you might be aware. I think Executive Vice President Virkunen is in Luxembourg, I believe, today. We go ahead with the decision when it's ready. It's true, no press conference possible, but as you said yourself, Thomas is here ready to answer all your questions. You just had a technical briefing. It's clearly a college decision that was adopted as soon as it was ready. Thomas.
Maybe just to recall for those who need what the decisions we took today. So today the Commission has imposed fines of 500 million euro to Apple and 200 million euro to Meta for breaching the Digital Markets Act. Now, Apple is indeed breaching its anti-steering obligations under the DMA by imposing a number of restrictions on app developers to steer their customers to alternative offers outside the Apple App Store. Meta, with its binary pay or consent advertising model, is breaching the DMA obligation to give consumers the choice of a service that uses less of their personal data. Now, these two fines issued today are the first ones under the DMA. Now, today we have also informed Apple of our preliminary view that its contract terms for alternative app distributions is also in breach of the DMA. In the framework of that investigation, Apple now has the right to access our investigation file and to defend itself. Now, some good news also. We decided today, and following a constructive dialogue and exchange with Apple, to close the investigation into Apple's user choice investigation and obligations. What does this mean concretely? Thanks to the DMA and the changes provided by Apple, users in the EU now have the possibility to easily uninstall applications, change default settings, and choose their default web browser. Now, a final decision and also a positive one for Meta. The Commission has found today that Facebook Marketplace should no longer be designated under the DMA.
I see a number of hands raised. Let's go here and then continue.
Thank you. Razia Akoch, AFP News Agency. Just please, if you could explain, because maybe I'm asking a very silly question, but last year Apple had got a 1.8 billion euro fine for similar offences, and now it's 500 million. And of course there had been reports that, you know, the fines would be modest. So to those accusations, 500 and 200 million, would you say that, you know, they're not modest and you would defend them? And I wanted to ask a response to what Joel Kaplan of Meta has said, saying the Commission forcing us to change our business model effectively imposes a multi-billion-dollar tariff on Meta. And I'd just like to say, with as much respect as I have for the SPP and for Thomas, we're more accustomed to hearing from politicians who should be answerable to the public, and I feel that the media, you know, we write and seek to represent them, Vestager and Breton would not shy away from presenting their decisions. Even when Vestager thought she was going to lose court cases, she had been preparing what she would say at a press conference. So I ask, Ribera and Virkunen being out of the country, and I know you said that the decisions, they come when they come, but since these decisions have been on the table for longer than just this past week, are they less courageous than the previous commissioners? Thank you.
Thanks. I'll take it from this last part and then hand over for Thomas. This has nothing to do about courage. This is about a decision that is ready, a regulation that we have a duty to enforce and to enforce it in a timely manner. Time matters, as you can get all details from Thomas. There are provisions that are going to kick in, and we ask Apple and Meta to comply with our decision, so the sooner the better. When it was ready, we adopted. It happens to be that Executive Vice President Ribeira is in Mexico, and my bad, Executive Vice President Virkunen is in Germany, actually, for the first stop of her AI factory tour. And we don't hold back decisions for communication purposes. We need to enforce our regulation. Now, I am sure that both the Executive Vice Presidents will have the occasion to comment on these decisions in the future. There will be other press conferences. You can, of course, reach out to them directly. Perhaps they will give interviews. And in the meantime, SPP, as you said, is here to try to answer as much as possible your questions. Before allowing you a follow-up, I'll give it over to Thomas for the first question.
Yes, thank you, Ariana. Ras, your question on the fines, are they modest? Are they high? I leave it for you to judge this. I would say from our point of view, they are proportionate. We follow due process. We really carry out solid cases here and solid investigations that we are ready to defend in court and that we're ready to win in court. So the fines are not modest, not high. I wouldn't judge this. They're proportionate, and they are proportionate also to the duration and the gravity of the infringement. Now, I would not compare them to a previous case that you're referring to, also because that duration of the breach was a longer one. So putting things in perspective again, voila, the fines are proportionate and follow due process.
You have a follow-up.
I mean, less of a follow-up, but I just want to say you're absolutely right in terms of commissioners, but I think I speak on behalf of some in the room when I say that as much as you're available, I don't think the same can be said for the commissioners in question.
Point taken. I think if you look at the occasions that Virkunen and Ribeira have been in this press room or in the press room in Strasbourg, for example, for college readouts, this is not entirely correct, but this is my judgment. If you want the numbers, you can find them online, or we will be happy to provide them to you. They both have been in the press room on this podium answering all your questions in several occasions since the start of the mandate. Yes, Thomas.
Yes. Indeed, for the Vice President, I know best and I work with the most. Indeed, she has probably responded to many questions in the readout, as Ariana is rightly saying. Now, that being said, I mean, if we put things in perspective again, at the beginning of the year, we were standing here and you were accusing us of not being fast enough. You were even pretending that the cases were done at technical level. I was telling you, no, guys, the work is ongoing at technical level. No political decision can be taken. Now the technical level is over. We advanced as quickly as possible on these cases. A political decision could be taken and was taken today. Voila, this is independent from the agenda of the EVPs you're referring to.
Go ahead. I imagine it's always on the DMA decisions.
Correct. Thank you. Lewis Crofts, MLEX. Thomas, at the technical briefing, we didn't yet have the statements of Apple and Meta, and Razia asked about the Meta one, which you didn't respond to. So I just wonder if you could just respond to what they're saying about your decisions. Apple says it's bad for privacy and security and allows Chinese and European companies to operate differently than American companies. Meta says you're attempting to handicap US companies, and the business model changes will be tantamount to multi-billion-dollar tariffs. So could you just respond to those from the companies today? Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. Let me maybe first start by recalling what the President said very recently. We don't care who owns a company. We don't care where the company is located. We are totally agnostic on that front from a European Union and from a Commission's perspective. What we're caring about is our consumers, our citizens, our businesses. And be it a Chinese company, be it an American company, or be it a European company, you will have to play by the rules in the European Union. And this is the only thing we're looking at. So it's a case-by-case analysis, solid cases, always following due process. And again, we do not care who owns or who is behind a company.
Thanks. And I think we have had numerous occasions to explain why we have adopted these rules, what the DMA aims at achieving, at ensuring a level playing field for our companies and offering better choices for our consumers. These are the reasons why we have these rules. And of course, these are the reasons why we enforce the rules we have equally to all companies. So this is why we are adopting the decisions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Leo Lichterwood, for context. I'm sure this decision will ruffle some feathers across the Atlantic. The Trump administration was probably also waiting for a press conference. If there is no press conference from the commissioners, will there be at some point today or in the coming weeks a discussion at the political level between the European commissioners on this decision with the Trump administration to explain to them why it was taken? Or if not, will there be a sort of dialogue at a more technical level? I'm sure you've already said several times that the DMA decisions were not part of the negotiations on tariffs, but should the Trump administration ask questions about those decisions? Should they question the validity of the decisions as they have already done in the past with the very substance of the legislation? Is the Commission ready to explain and to defend those decisions to the Trump administration? Thank you.
Thanks. I'll repeat it again. These decisions have nothing to do with trade negotiations. They are simply not part of it. We are enforcing a regulation that we adopted, I would say a couple of years ago, I don't exactly remember when, but it's enforcement of a legislation that we have adopted a long while ago. Of course, cases take their time and we adopt them once ready. This is completely a separate matter compared to the trade negotiations. Trade negotiations, as we have been saying yesterday and as we have always told you, are ongoing with our US counterparts. We are in technical level talks. We had political level discussions last week. These do not relate to the decisions we adopted today, and they should not be a matter of trade negotiations. Now, of course, we have been in contact with the companies throughout the process. We will continue to be in contact with the companies. What we tell our international partners is that we enforce our regulations equally, irrespective of the ownership of the companies. This applies in this case and in any other case. If a third party has any matter it wants to discuss with us concerning our regulations, like always, we are very happy to explain to our international partners the reasonings behind having these regulations and the way in which we apply them. This can always be done, and we're always available to engage with international partners to express the relevance and the fairness of our rules. But this is not in the context of trade negotiations. It's more generally in relation to all of our rules. Thomas, you wanted to add a few words?
Just to add one point. When I was saying that we're following due process, all decisions taken by the Commission can also be challenged. There's a possibility that now platforms have. We will defend our case in court if we get there, but we are now in the next steps engaging and encouraging the companies to engage with us. They have now 60 days to put an end to these breaches. Otherwise, they could potentially face periodic penalty payments. So again, we're following due process. We did solid cases based on serious evidence. We're ready to engage with the companies in the next 60 days and in the future.
Thanks, Thomas. You have a follow-up, and then I'll take a couple of questions from remote.
Yes, sorry, about due process. You mentioned, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, that the technical work was done on those files. So for those 2 or 3 weeks, those decisions have been in the making at the political level. Could you explain exactly what those political decisions entail and why it took 2 to 3 weeks, which is relatively a long time at the scale of the whole process? It's short, but still 2 or 3 weeks from the technical work to the political decision is quite a long time. So could you specify exactly what those political decisions implied? Thanks.
Thanks, Leo. Let's put it the other way around, once the technical level is over, which I mentioned last week here from this podium, there is an engagement between the line cabinets, so the EVPs we were mentioning before, and the services who expose the cases, and then at political level, and this is what it takes a little bit of time, we need to clarify and set the final details when it comes to the amount of the fine, etc. This needs to be discussed with other cabinets, with everyone that needs to be consulted, so this takes a little bit of time, hence why we couldn't adopt it immediately. But now we are there just a week after I announced that the technical work was over.
And if I can add, decisions always in competition cases, but also under the DMA, they are a process. So we have a technical level where we look at evidence, where we exchange with the companies, we do our research, etc. And then all this has to be translated into a decision that has to be also legally solid. A decision that has to be as legally solid as to stand a case in court, because as Thomas was saying, all of our decisions can be challenged. Of course, we want to have decisions that are solid enough and that we believe will be confirmed by the courts even if challenged. And this takes a bit of time. It is a college decision, so it also has to go through an internal process. And for this reason, there's always a bit of additional time needed between when the technical work is over and when the decision can actually be adopted in its legal format by the college. Yes, go ahead. And then I'll take from remote because I have Edith waiting for a long while.
Yes, thank you. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Who decides the fine, the political level or the technical level? Thank you.
Thomas can explain that the fine has to be proportionate, so there are criteria to be taken into account when defining a fine level.
So this is indeed decided at all levels because it needs technical input, of course, to be able to assess the gravity and the duration of the breach. So this is decided as a whole within the Commission, indeed.
Edith from remote. We cannot hear you. We see you. I guess you mean that you will type your question in the chat. If I read your sign language well enough. Okay, let's do that. Mose, you had your hand raised, but I believe it's on a different matter. Wait, we got Edith's question, so I will read it out loud. These decisions were announced about 1 month ago outside the Commission's self-imposed best endeavour deadline. And Commissioner Ribeira has gone on the record assuring the investigations would end by the end of March. Is the Commission worried this timing on the political decision exposes the decision to legal risk, especially given Apple intends to appeal?
Thanks, Edith. No, indeed, there was a best effort political deadline to close these decisions within 1 year. It was not a legal deadline foreseen in the legislation, but of course, again, a best effort deadline when we opened the cases more than a year ago. Now, indeed, there's a slight delay in the adoption of the decision, but I think this is in everyone's interest. This is in the interest of the companies, and this is also in our interest to have solid cases. So if we need a bit more time to be even more solid and to be sure to win these cases in court, then of course we'll take this additional time if needed.
And of course, the 1 year time frame is indicative. We do our best to respect it, but it's more important, as Thomas was saying, to really engage with the companies, to have a dialogue whenever possible, and then to have legally sound decisions.
To conclude on your questions, it's actually increasing legal certainty if we really go through the process till the end and if we're not going too far for any political reasons, which we did not do, obviously.
Virginie, you have a question on the DMA.
Bonjour, vous m'entendez?
Oui, on t'entend.
Alors, oui, j'ai une première question sur les pénalités. Si dans les 60 jours ouvrables, les entreprises ne se conforment pas aux préconisations de la Commission, vous avez dit à plusieurs reprises qu'il peut y avoir des pénalités. Mais en fait, je ne comprends pas pourquoi ces pénalités ne sont pas automatiques si les entreprises ne se conforment pas, évidemment. Je ne vois pas pourquoi... S'ils continuent à enfreindre la loi, il n'y a pas des pénalités. Il y a un truc que je ne comprends pas. Et voilà. Et seconde chose, une remarque juste pour rebondir sur ce qui a été dit en début de la réunion. C'est la première fois que sur une décision qui est politiquement importante, puisque c'est la première décision DMA, on n'a aucun commissaire pour la défendre. Je trouve ça signifiant. Merci.
Thomas.
Merci Virginie. Je me permets de répondre à ta première question. Par rapport à ta première question, effectivement, maintenant on va engager une discussion et on espère que les plateformes vont vouloir le faire aussi, s'engager dans une discussion durant 60 jours avec ces plateformes pour arriver à une solution satisfaisante pour tout le monde et à une conformité. Si cela ne devait pas se faire, alors effectivement, une des astreintes journalières pourrait être imposées aux plateformes. Ces astreintes iraient jusqu'à un maximum de 5% du chiffre d'affaires annuel mondial, du chiffre d'affaires journalier mondial de ces plateformes. Maintenant, c'est un peu spéculatif, mais effectivement, s'il n'y a pas de conformité, la législation prévoit qu'on puisse justement adopter des mesures supplémentaires.
Merci. Et si je peux ajouter, et Thomas, s'il te plaît, aide-moi si je dis quelque chose qui n'est pas correct, mais je pense aussi qu'encore une fois, l'important pour nous, c'est d'arriver à une solution dans l'intérêt de notre consommateur et de notre entreprise. Donc, ce n'est pas automatique après 60 jours parce que, comme on engage avec les entreprises, on doit voir où on est dans le dialogue avec eux après 60 jours. C'est une possibilité et on va évaluer la situation à ce moment-là.
Et peut-être point important aussi à rappeler, une amende en tant que telle n'est pas la finalité. La finalité pour nous en tant que commission, c'est la conformité de la plateforme à notre législation. Donc bien entendu qu'une amende peut être importante parce qu'elle peut être dissuasive ou elle peut entraîner le fait que justement on arrive à conformité dans le futur. Mais de nouveau, le montant de cette amende et l'amende en tant que telle ne sont pas une finalité pour l'institution. Pour nous en tant que commission, l'objectif est la conformité de ces plateformes et de toutes ces plateformes à notre législation.
Merci. D'autres questions à propos du sujet du DMA et de la décision qu'on a prise aujourd'hui? Non, je ne vois pas de main levée. D'autres questions pour Thomas sur le dossier qu'ils suivent? Oui, c'est pour Thomas.
Johannes Liebert, ZDF German Media. I have another question on the fines. Can you tell us exactly how these fines are calculated and what variables are taken into account? Because it's, in our perspective, relatively low compared to the 10% that the DNA allows.
Thank you and guten Tag. I would let you, again, judge if this is a modest fine or not. This you can feel free to do it in your reporting. From our perspective, again, what I can recall, these fines are proportionate and they were calculated following, of course, due process. Now, what are the criteria that we took into account? We took into account the gravity of the breach, the duration of the breach, and then, of course, there are some mitigation measures. The fact that this is an absolute novel legislation that entered into application just about a year ago are factors that are taken into account. And then, once we reach such a figure, such an amount, the last element we're looking at is indeed the 10% annual turnover of these companies to be sure that we do not exceed this because the legislation doesn't allow us to. But that's the ultimate check at the very end on these 10% figure.
Thanks, Thomas. I see Tommaso has his hand raised from a remote. I imagine it's on the same matter, or still for Thomas? No, not the case. Other questions for Thomas on the files he follows? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Binna Chung from Yonat News Agency. Tom, I just sent you an email, but I want to ask you this on the record as well. The Defense Commissioner today is receiving the South Korean minister, so I would like to know if you have anything that you can share about the meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, I haven't seen your email in the meantime, but I will definitely get back to you, and probably as per usual practice, also the Commissioner will probably tweet on this meeting. So this is, of course, an important meeting. We have shared global challenges also in the field, and especially in the field of defense in the current geopolitical context. So this is, of course, an important meeting for us, for the Commissioner, for our counterparts, and we'll debrief you after the meeting.
Thomas had a bit of a busy day, and it's also his birthday. So yes. So happy birthday, Thomas. With that, I think we can let him go back to his seat. I do not see other hands raised for him. I will take now other questions. Sabina, go ahead.
Happy birthday. Thanks for the floor, Sabina Rosetta-Ansa. It should be for Olaf, but I don't see him. He's on banking, regulation, financial services. He has already said in the past that you were going to look into the golden power regulation in Italy. Then last week, Italian government set some limits on the merger between UniCredit and Banco BPM. I wonder if you reached out to Italian government, if you already talked with them on this regulation. What's your assessment on these limits that the Italian government has set to this merger? Thank you.
Thanks. Olaf is not here today, as you have rightly spotted. It would still be for Thomas. I'm not entirely sure that the poor man has an answer for you. If not, we will get back to you bilaterally after. Let's see.
Yes, I'm back, and sorry to disappoint you, but the answer I have for you is that we never comment on individual cases or transactions.
Tommaso. I imagine it's the same topic. Mose, I know it's a different matter.
Yeah, it's the same topic. Tommaso Galavotti in Kronos Italy. It's a follow-up to the question asked by Sabina. On this issue, I know you don't comment on single operations, but I wonder if you are worried by, this, quite free use of the golden power, because it's been used on a Italy merger, which is quite odd, and moreover, it's being used against an operation which is not, which the government doesn't like that much, because Banco BPM, which is the bank which is the object of the offer, is, quite. The Lega has some interest in that bank indirectly. So, these are apparently, seemingly minor issues, but the political use of golden power might be very dangerous, and I wonder if the Commission is going to look into these developments. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tommaso. Maybe I can add a little bit by saying that, from a security and public order perspective, member states retain the responsibility to implement restrictions to market freedoms through their national laws. Now, what is, of course, very important for us is that these restrictions to the fundamental freedoms are only permitted if they are proportionate and based on legitimate public interest. So this is, of course, a key prerogative.
David.
Thank you. David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Thomas, you said that you don't comment on specific cases, but if I remember well, the European Commission has opened a pilot procedure based on these cases. So I'm wondering, and again, this is more than a single operation or a single case. It's the way this Italian government is applying the golden power in different cases. At what stage is the pilot, and when the Commission will react seriously with the next step? Thank you.
Thanks, David. So I can confirm indeed that we have requested information to Italy, and we have indeed launched this EU pilot. Now, I think it's important also to keep in mind, these are informal discussions in a more structured way to engage with the member states, and here in this case with the Italian authorities, but it's hard for me now to prejudge the outcome of this or where we're exactly in our bilateral confidential exchanges with the Italian authorities on this. This is what I can say so far on this.
David, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, this is informal, but normally you don't open a pilot if you don't have a suspicion of a breach of EU law. Am I wrong?
Indeed, here we're engaging with the Italian authorities to, in a structured way, to receive additional information.
Thanks. I do not see other hands raised on this matter. Therefore, thanks, Thomas. Other questions for us today on different matters? Let's start at my right and then move through the press room.
Thank you. Ragnar Skre, freelance for Fiskeribladet. I have a question for perhaps Mercier or Anna, if they are here. It's about the Oceans Pact. I understand that Commissioner Cadiz plans to have the Oceans Pact proposal ready before the United Nations Oceans Conference in June. And I also understand that the pact is billed as a mere communication and that no new legislation is planned as part of the pact. But still, I'd like to know, on the background, that the Commission just recently announced a significant rollback of parts of the farm-to-fork strategy, the so-called omnibus simplification package, following last year's protests from farmers who felt disproportionately burdened by the EU's green agenda. Now the Commission is launching a new Oceans Pact, and diplomatic sources that I've talked to and stakeholders, they are concerned that Mr. Cadiz is leaning too heavily in the direction of environmental concerns, and that fisheries interests will be sidelined, and that similar burdens could be placed on them as the farm to fork placed on the farmers, perhaps. Could the Commission guarantee that the pact will remain communication and not evolve into binding legislation like what happened to farm to fork, which was also presented as a communication? And do you plan to avoid similar backlash from the fisheries in the sector? And I would also like to know...
It's a very long question. I would start to have Maciej answer to the first part, and then we continue with the rest. Shorter questions help us to give everyone a possibility.
Third countries, Norway, will be impacted. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your question. So when it comes to the Oceans Pact, what I can say that our work on this initiative is still ongoing. It is planned, as you probably know, tentatively for adoption at the beginning of June, and I cannot recommend at this stage what it will actually cover, to what extent it will touch upon different elements. I invite you to follow this work and be ready when we adopt it at the beginning of June. Thank you.
You have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Could you not address those concerns that I have heard from diplomat sources? And do you exclude the possibility that this pact will evolve into an act, as actually the Socialist and Democrats group has publicly called for?
I understand the interest, but we're not in the habit of commenting on matters before they are actually adopted and proposed. But Maciej.
Yes, as I said, this is ongoing work. At this stage, we cannot disclose, what issues will be addressed in the pact. Once it's adopted, you will see what is actually, the pact targeting when it comes to measures or initiatives or proposals. At this stage, it's too early to comment on it.
Thanks. Since you're here, I think Mose had a question for you. Mose from remote.
Yes, thank you, Ariana. It's a question which I tried to raise before Easter, but I suppose it's perhaps more topical now, because as you know, the co-legislators, the Council and the Parliament are expected to decide the beginning of next month to approve the Commission's proposal on the downgrading of the protection of wolves as an amendment to the Habitats Directive of Annex number 4. And as we know, there has been an infringement case going on since for 14 years, since 2011 against Sweden. Again, it's hunting of wolves. And it resulted in two recent opinions against Sweden, but nothing more, and the Commission did not refer the case to European Court of Justice, nor has it been closed yet. So my question is now, expecting this decision, and it doesn't change anything about the need to ensure the favorable conservation status of the wolf populations in the EU. So I wonder, will the Commission now finally refer the case to the court, or will it simply close it? That is the question. I think there is a moment of truth now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mose. I understand the question, but we don't really make announcements in the press room before actually deciding and adopting decisions on the next steps. It's the other way around. We decide what the next steps is and adopt a decision, and then we communicate about it. So I'm afraid that there's not much that Maciej will be in a position to say on the specific case.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mose. So, as Ariana said, I would not comment on the ongoing infringement case. What I can say, indeed, that following the decision of the Berne Convention, as you know, we have proposed an amendment, a targeted amendment to the Habitats Directive, indeed to lower the protection status of the wolf from strictly protected to protected. And now this proposal is in the hands of the co-legislators, which are supposed to decide upon it. And we are hoping for a swift adoption of this proposal. And in any case, the lowering of the status of the protection of wolf will not release member states from the obligation to protect and preserve the favorable conservation status of the wolf, as you know.
Thanks, Maciej. Other questions for Maciej on the files he follows? Not the case. Thanks a lot. Other questions for us today? Okay, many hands raised. I continue through the press room. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Vitaly Sizov, UATV. To Anita, for Foreign Affairs. How do you assess the problem or setback in today's peace negotiation in London? Does the EU have a plan B in case the United States withdraws from the talks, as suggested by Secretary of State Rubio last week in the event of deadlock? And finally, what is your position on the idea that Ukraine should formally cede some of its territory as a part of potential agreement, in particular Crimea? Thank you.
Thanks. Anita's not here today. It's Guillaume covering.
Hi. Thank you for your questions. What I can say on today's talks in London, so the efforts of France and the UK for completing these discussions and meetings continue. So we're in close contact with them. We welcome all efforts that respect the UN Charter to bring peace to Ukraine. And our diplomatic efforts continue at all levels. Our position when it comes to the peace talks has been really clear. So it is for Ukraine to set the conditions for a just and lasting peace, and nothing will happen about Ukraine without Ukraine and without the EU. And if you allow me also, you were asking on our position on the Ukraine sovereignty. So for the EU, upholding Ukraine's independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity is crucial. Further on your questions on whether there will be a plan B, what I can say is our priority now is to ensure that Ukraine is in a position of strength. We continue increasing our military support to Ukraine. Member states have now committed to 23 billion for this year and have reached already 2/3 of this commitment of the goal of the ammunition set for this year. The strongest the Ukraine will be on the battlefield, the strongest it will be at the negotiation table. So our diplomatic efforts continue, as I just said, at all times to support Ukraine, to support its right of defense, and for a long and lasting peace. And this is our engagement for the past 3 years now already.
And if I may add, I'm not really sure I would speak of a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan Z. It doesn't matter the table. Any occasion for the EU is relevant to engage in support of Ukraine and in support of a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, for its territorial integrity, and for conditions to a lasting peace that Ukraine considers fair to its citizens and to its country. So the setting is less of relevance. What is of relevance is that our diplomatic efforts in the sense have been been complete from the first day and continue to be in each and every occasion we have on each and every table where us or our member states are present, and of course through the continued strong support we give through Ukraine in the many ways you are aware of. Other questions on Ukraine specifically? Yes, go ahead.
Hello, Ariana. More of a general question as a matter of principle. Where do you stand on the issue of the possible recognition of Ukrainian territory that has been occupied by Russian forces illegally? Thank you.
Thanks. I think Guillaume just answered that question, but perhaps you want to...
No, I can just recall what I just said. We stand with Ukraine in the support of its sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. And when it comes also to Crimea, our position is really clear. Crimea is Ukraine.
So we have said it from the first day, and we continue to abide it. We support the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and above all, we support conditions that are acceptable for Ukraine in first place. Yes, go ahead. Middle of the press room. I'm working my way through.
Hi, Joachim Clementi from Estonian Public Broadcasting. Sort of in a similar vein about sanctions. In these negotiations, there's talk of arriving to some deal that would ultimately result in some sanctions to Russia being cancelled. I wonder, can you reiterate the EU line on this as well? Are we open to discussing sanctions on Russia, alleviating some of it to get some sort of deal, or are we not open? Is this a red line for us?
What I can say is that we have already adopted 16 packages of sanctions, which includes a broad range of aspects, and this work continues. We are now already working on the next sanction package to further target Russia's capacity to finance the war. More precisely on your question, the end of the Russian unprovoked and unjustified aggression of Ukraine and the unconditional withdrawal of all Russian military forces from the entire territory of Ukraine will be the one main preconditions to amend or to lift the sanctions against Russia.
Indeed, as we have said in the past days, we have seen no sign of goodwill from Russia on this matter. Ceasefires have led to more attacks on the Ukrainian territory. Therefore, the sanctions are in place because Russia has started a war of aggression in Ukraine. First and foremost, Russia has to stop its war of aggression. It's very simple. For the war to end, it withdraws its forces and it gives back the territory to Ukraine. And that is a starting point. For this reason, as Guillaume has said, the sanctions package remain in force, and we continue to work on making them better, on preventing circumvention measures. Of course, we always need to adapt because the circumvention forces also find new ways to engage, and this is why we adapt our packages. We find new ways in which we can limit the resources available for Russia in engaging in its warfare against Ukraine, and we will continue to do so until there is, as we were saying, a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Yes, David, and then Jorge again.
Thank you, sorry because it's my third or fourth question, but what would be the consequence, or what are the consequences for a third country that recognizes Crimea as part of Russia? There are very few cases, I guess, but I would like to know if there are consequences, and if you can imagine consequences also if a so-called ally would do the same. Thank you.
I will not speculate on your questions. I can only recall what we have said already, is that we fully support Ukraine's territorial integrity, and it is unconditional. And our priority now is really to make sure that Ukraine is in a position of strength, and will continue to do so through our support.
Indeed. Not our practice to speculate on this. Jorge, you had another question?
Yes. Regarding the sanctions, you said that you're preparing a new package. We knew that. We also know that the situation regarding the renewal of the existing sanctions is becoming increasingly fragile in the European Union due to the position of Hungary. Are you working on any sort of contingency plan to avoid the unanimity that could prevent the rollover of the sanctions? Are you already working on this, or you still hope the traditional way is the way to go? Thank you.
On sanctions, for the specific questions, it would be more for my colleague Olaf, who is not here. Maybe Thomas, you want to take it, but.
Indeed, I think it would be for Thomas today again. But look, on the sanction packages, we are working on them. We present them when they are ready. Also, let's not speculate on possible scenarios coming up. Right now, we have these sanction packages in force. We will cross that bridge once we get there. We continue to work with the member states on them. The reality of facts is that as of today, we have 16 sanction packages in place with the support of the member states. We are using the windfall profits from the frozen assets, and all this has been done with the approval of the member states. This is what the facts tell us. If the facts will tell us something different in the future, we will tackle it once we get there. But as of today, that is the situation. Mose, you had a question on sanctions, and then I revert to the press room.
Yes, thanks again, Ariana. Moves up on the buses times. I would like to ask a follow-up question on sanctions, but more specifically about the circumvention. You mentioned that also, Ariana. We just published an article in Buses Times about the circumvention based on sources in Ukraine itself, and they're not satisfied with the extent of the circumvention by, for example, third countries. So I would like to ask first, if the Commission is working how to, let's say, prevent circumvention by other countries. And what about the rumors that, for example, the United States has proposed, I think, that the sanctions, that the exemption for pesticides and agricultural products should be lifted? Thank you.
Thanks, Mose. On the rumours, we're not going to comment, and I said that we will not speculate on possible follow-ups. The sanctions are in place. We are enforcing them. Russia, to end the war, just has to leave the territory of Ukraine. For what concerns circumvention, absolutely yes, we are very well aware, and we are doing all efforts possible from the first day to avoid sanction circumvention. I think the President has said it herself in this press room. It is in the very nature of sanctions that you adopt them, and then the other party, in this case Russia, finds ways to circumvent them. What you need to do, and what we are doing, and we continue to do with our allies, is finding ways to avoid these circumventions. But it's a constant process, and you constantly need to adapt. And this is why in the 16 packages you have seen different measures to tackle the issue of circumventions. Now, we also engage our international partners in preventing sanction circumvention. We have a special envoy, David O'Sullivan, that engages constantly with partners around the world, working with them to improve the system. Sanctions are not a perfect system. You need to continue working on them, and absolutely our total engagement is on making sure that Russia suffers the consequences of its horrible acts in Ukraine, also thanks through the sanctions we adopt. I do not see other hands raised with respect to Ukraine or sanctions. Is it on this matter? Yeah? No? Maybe? No. Unraised. Okay. Then other questions on foreign affairs more generally? Not the case either. Thanks, Guillaume. Then let's go here, just behind the screen, yes. And then we'll come back to the end of the press room.
Hi, for Anna Kaiser. Two questions. One on this methane regulation, the idea, I think it's Article 28, Paragraph 6, where there's an equivalence regulation, delegated act or whatever. I was wondering, the ability to actually do that before the January 2027 to facilitate imports of US LNG, is there any room for manoeuvre there? Can it be done before? Will that facilitate LNG imports from the US? And then secondly, on banning contracts for Russian fossil fuels. Is that a serious option that the Commission is coming up? I mean, that's what we're hearing from the roadmap. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Anna Kaiser.
I will start with methane. We were in touch earlier about this. I mean, it is one of the articles in the methane regulation, and we did publish an explanatory questions and answers last year when the regulation was adopted. So on this, what kind of leeway it will give possibly to the Commission and how we interpret this, I will have to check that, because, I mean, to us, the rules are quite clear on the different stages, how these regulations enters into force and what we expect from importing and exporting companies to notify to the Commission. I think they were quite clear in the Q&A, but if they were not satisfactory to your needs, I will have to check that and get back to you if that's all right. On the gas contracts, first of all, we are in the process of preparing the roadmap, and which will be presented in the next weeks. So therefore, we do not have any comment to make. And generally on gas contracts, the rights and obligations of parties to contracts depend on the individual agreements in the respective contracts. We do not have any comment to make on those from the podium, and especially now that the work is ongoing.
David, do you have a follow-up?
Sorry, you said gas contract, fossil fuel contracts, Russian fossil fuel contracts. Was that a slip of the tongue? And then the second follow-up was on the methane regulation. There doesn't seem to be any leeway to tweak it. I mean, the methane regulation, as you said, was very clear. Your memo is very clear. The Article 28, paragraph 6 is very clear. There doesn't seem to be any way to change that without changing the regulation itself, right?
I'm not sure if you now wanted to answer your own question there, but I mean, I'm still happy to check still to be double sure. And as regards contracts, that's about all contracts between private companies. We do not have access to them, and they are, and the rights and obligations are determined for each contract. I do not have any comment to make to those. And as regards the preparations of roadmap, you're referring to the reporting that we have been able to read. We do not have any comment to make until the college members present the roadmap in the next weeks.
Stay tuned. It should come relatively soon. Other questions for Anna Kaiser on the files she follows? Not the case. Thanks a lot. Other questions for us today on different matters? Go ahead.
Thanks, Ariana. Gerardo Fortuna from Euronews. There have been lately some requests from pharmaceutical companies to the Commission. The latest one was published by the FT this morning, and there are discussions in yet another strategic dialogue. Considering that the talks are going very, very slow at the Council, is the Commission considering the option of withdrawing its proposal on the general pharmaceutical legislation?
Thanks. Eva joining me.
Thank you for the question. Yes, hello, good afternoon. You are right. There has recently been some report about the pharmaceutical industry in Europe. We are totally aware of the strategic position of the pharmaceutical industry, and as you point out, there is a reform of the pharmaceutical market now being with co-legislators in the Council and in the Parliament. I am not aware of the fact that it's going so bad as you say. We hope the reform will be adopted, and we have also proposed a Critical Medicines Act recently during the first 100 days that's been here to improve the pharmaceutical market in Europe.
You have a follow-up.
The follow-up is the same question. So it's not an option withdrawing the proposal?
Look, beyond, so On the specific case, it's a proposal that is with the co-legislators and that we trust will have a positive outcome. Of course, in very general and theoretical terms, beyond the specific regulation, you have seen it recently as part of the omnibus we have adopted. If there are files that remain blocked by the co-legislators for a very long time and we see no margins of progress, then of course we can decide to withdraw them. But this is not the case for this specific one. For this specific one, we are working with the co-legislators in view of a positive outcome. Beyond that, our engagement and our interest in the pharmaceutical industry is very clear. We have been working on legal acts, for example, the Critical Medicines Act. As you know, the President had a call with some pharmaceutical companies a couple of weeks ago in which he has engaged on their concerns and has started a dialogue process to take into account their needs of an industry which is important both from an industry perspective but, of course, above all from a healthcare perspective for our citizens. Eva, anything you want to add?
Ariana. And as you know, the pharmaceutical legislation that is in place needs a reform, so that's why we have the proposal about the pharmaceutical legislation on the table, and that's why we also proposed the Critical Medicines Act, because we need the market to be more flexible and more adapted to the current needs. Obviously, we also want to make the market more attractive for the pharmaceutical companies to bring innovations to Europe, to bring to improve the manufacturing of the medicines. So this is everything what is a work in progress, I would say. And as Ariana pointed out, we have a dialogue with the pharmaceutical industry, which means we are in a contact with the companies.
Thanks, Eva. I do not see other hands raised for Eva. Other questions for us today? Not the case as far as I can see. So thank you very much. We will be back tomorrow for our next press briefing. Have a very nice afternoon. Goodbye.